I'm super new to Udon and coding in general, and I'm starting to make a toggle that would transfer an object from one position to another. Well, let me show you how to do that. So, first thing we need is we need to grab our object. So I'm going to create first a button. So here's a cube. I'm going to scale it down to 0.2. I'm going to fly around and go Control-Shift-F to place it where we are, and then reset its rotation. Now we need an object to teleport, and for this I'm going to create, let's go with cylinder, why not? And I'm going to put it over here. So this is the object to teleport, this is the button, let me just name that. Button, oh, I've got caps lock on, doesn't really matter though. Object to tele, and last but not least we need two locations for it to teleport to. So I'm just going to move it over here and create an empty object, and I'm going to call this telepos1 and move it out, and I'm going to move this over to here and create another one, and I'm going to call this telepos2. Sweet. So now we have our object, our button to teleport, and then the two places that we want it to teleport to. I'm just going to remove this capsule collider in case it causes problems later. Okay, so on this button, I'm going to make it is trigger so that we can't walk into it, or so we can just click on it and that's all. And then I'm going to come down here and go add component and create an Udon behavior component. Then I'm going to come into the project, I'm going to right click and go create VRChat Udon graph program, and I'm going to call this telescript. You could probably call it something better. Now I'm going to come into the thing. I just went shift spacebar, but you can also just double click on the tab to full screen it here. And now we need some variables. So, because we need to know what object we're going to teleport, we're going to create a transform object. I'm going to call this target object. I'm going to hit this drop down and make it public so we can see it inside the inspector. Then I need the two locations that we're going to teleport to. So I'm going to create two more transforms. So transform 1 and transform 2. I'm going to call this telepos1 and telepos2. I'm going to hit the drop down and make these also public because we'll need to select them inside the inspector. Now last but not least, we need to know if we are in position 1 or position 2. So for that I'm going to create a bool variable, and I'm going to say this is toggled. This one doesn't need to be public or anything, so we can just leave it as it is. Okay, so now when we click on the button, which is done with an event interact, we need to change this toggle. That's the first thing we need to do. So I'm going to drag and drop it while holding control to get a node that will change this value. And for this, we need to do it the opposite of what it currently is. So we're going to drag and drop our is toggle to get the value that it is currently. And we're going to put that bool into a boolean linear negation node, which flips the value. And once again, I have no idea why it's called that. Awesome. So now that we've got that, we have flipped the value of the bool. Now what we need to do is update the bool's position. Now for this, I actually want to also do this on start. So I'm actually going to make this as a custom event. So let's just create an event custom, and I'm going to call this, update position, or update pos, that'll be good enough. You generally want to keep these short. And we're going to call this event from this, but we need to actually add something here first. So for this, I'm going to create a branch node by having nothing selected, holding down B and left clicking, but you can also just look it up. And I'm going to drag and drop our arrow into this. And there we go. I'm then going to copy this. Now you don't want to drag and drop it in because this is part of a different event and that can cause compiling errors. So just in general, keep your variables separate between two different events. Anyways, so now if this value is true, we want it to go to position 2. And if it is false, because we haven't toggled it yet, we want it to be in position 1. So to do this, we're just going to grab our object. And we're going to use a transform set position and rotation node. Make sure it's set position and not set local position, which I nearly clicked there. Then we want to, this is when it's on, so we want position number 2. And we're going to get the transform get position and rotation. And this one is really big, but that's not to matter. And we should be able to just drag and drop it. I haven't actually used this in Udon graph, so we'll see that if this actually works. I'm pretty sure this works. I'm pretty sure I've seen someone else do this. Anyways, then I'm going to duplicate that down. And I'm just going to change this from tele2 to tele1. And now we're going to move, and now we can drag and drop the false in here. So now, whenever this event is played, it will grab whatever the value of the toggle is, and if it is true, it will grab our position of position 2 and set our object to be that. And if it is false, it will grab position 1 and set our target object to be in that position. That has copied wrong. Well done, Udon. Make sure you fix that on your end. Awesome. So now we just need to do two things. We need to call this event twice. So we need to call it whenever we change the value, but you also need to call it whenever whenever the game begins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a send custom event node. And on this, I'm going to choose the event to be update pos. Then I'm just going to duplicate this across and use an event start node. And so now when the game begins, it will update the position, and also when we click it and we've changed the value, it will then also update the position. Awesome. Now, I'm also going to show how you can do this if it's networked, and to do that, you simply want to make is toggle to be public. No, not public, you want to make it synced. Let me get that right. And then what we want to do is, well, whenever we click on the object, we need to set ourselves the owner, so there'll be a networked set owner. Plug that in. Then we also need a player AP. Sorry. We need a networking get local player. And this will just set us to be the local player so that we're able to change the synced value, as only the owner of the object can change synced variables. Then what we need to do is we want to do a request serialization to tell everyone that we've changed the value. Now, whenever this is called, what we want to do is we want to use a on deserialization, which is basically when something changes in this, all we can do is we can just tell it to update the position of the node. So basically, if someone changes the bool, it will fire, because the request serialization played, it will fire an on deserialization, which will tell us that some synced variable has changed. In our case, we only have one synced variable, and so it's just that. Also, I believe if the owner changes, it also fires this, but if it fires multiple times, like when nothing's changed, it will just reset the position to be where it was, so it doesn't really matter. If that's a problem, what you would do is you create an old bool variable, and you check whether or not that old bool variable has changed. Alternatively, you can also use the event on is toggle changed, and then you do send change, and then it would do that as well. However, that's not what we're doing. And we might as well leave this all networked because I assume that's what you're after. Awesome. With that, we're just going to hit the compile button. Make sure you hit that in case you change any values that aren't saved. And then we've got our button here. I'm going to come down here and give it the script. Then we need to give it the target object, which is object2tally, and then position 1, and then position 2. Awesome. So now when we hit play, we should see it work. And now that we're in the world, sorry about the really small screen here, we can see that when we click the button, it teleports the object. We also notice that it started in the start position, despite our Unity project having it in the middle, and that's because we just used an event start node. So hopefully you found that helpful. Hopefully it explained your question, and yeah, feel free to follow me on my YouTube, Patreon, Discord, all that good stuff, and I'll see you again later.